Hello chess fans! The position that arose in this game was the object of theoretical battle, or rather a creative duel between Mikhail Chigorin, who played in the gambit style, and the founder of positional chess, the first world champion Wilhelm Steinitz, whose approach was more materialistic. The game is a good illustration of the importance of initiative in chess and dangers of giving it to the opponent for the sake of material. Chigorin played white pieces, and they played Italian opening, Evans gambit. Before, the idea is to sacrifice the pawn in order to build a strong center, pawn center, and get the initiative. Queen f6, d4, and here Steinitz made an unnatural move, knight h6, developing the knight to the corner of the board. However, in the previous games, in the same variation, Steinitz played against Chigorin more natural move, knight e7, but got a very bad position after d5, Queen a4 attacking the bishop, bishop g5, knight a3 threatening knight b5 with tempo, that's why c6 to prevent it, rook d1 creating a very unpleasant x-ray, that's why queen b8, and Chigorin got almost a winning position in that case. That's why instead of knight e7, Steinitz played knight h6. Bishop g5, and Steinitz played queen d6 in order to keep the extra pawn. However, it would be better to play queen g6, returning the pawn, but the position would be more or less equal. After queen d6, Chigorin played d5, attacking the knight, queen a4 attacking the bishop, knight a3 threatening knight b5, that's why c6, and now a very strong move by Chigorin. The knight isn't doing anything on a3, and b5 is inaccessible. That's why the best square for the knight would be c4, of course, with tempo, and the knight from c4 would exert very strong pressure on black's position. That's why bishop e2, vacating the square for the knight. Bishop c7, knight c4, queen f8, and now black has the extra pawn. Of course, for the sacrificed pawn, Chigorin has a much better development and very strong initiative. However, black doesn't have weaknesses, and the position is closed. Central lines are closed, so the king feels in safety. However, with his next move, which you can pause the video and try to find, Chigorin found a way to create weaknesses in black's position and develop his initiative even further. He achieved that by sacrificing the second pawn, d6. The idea is to deflect the bishop from c7 so that it doesn't control very important b6 square. And after bishop takes d6, knight b6, attacking the rook, and the pawn is pinned. That's why Steinitz played rook b8. And now we can see the weakness that Chigorin created on a7. Besides that, the d-file is open now, and the rook, white rook, would exert very strong pressure on this open file. And after queen takes a7, the queen is attacking the rook, and the rook would need a constant defense by the bishop, which itself is shaky on the d-file. So now black has weaknesses and problems for the pawn, extra pawn. Knight e6, attacking the bishop. And now again, the next very strong move by Chigorin, bishop c1. The idea is to move the bishop to a3, and black, of course, won't be able to capture it because the rook would fall. And after bishop a3, white would threaten to capture the rook, and after bishop captures back, the queen would fall, and white will have the extra exchange. Steinitz played knight g8, and we have reached the position that was the object of their dispute. Steinitz, about this position, wrote, I quote, "I consider that now, that is after black's 17th move, my position is better than it was at the start of the game, and I am ready to lay odds of 2-1 that my opponent will not win. In other words, I undertake to draw at least." And we will see if his evaluation of this position was right or wrong now. So, bishop a3, now queen captures b8 is threatened, that's why c5. However, this move terribly weakens the very important d5 square, and the knight would be ideally placed on d5. Rook d1, rook now is very strong on d-file, while black rooks aren't doing anything. Knight f6, the bishop on e2 isn't doing anything, so bishop c4. as there is unpleasant pressure on the bishop, bishop c7. And now knight d5, attacking the bishop. Very important bishop. If it falls, the rook would also fall. And the problem is black cannot capture the knight. If knight takes d5, then e takes d, attacking the knight, which in its turn defends the very important c5 square. And after the knight retreats, d6 would follow. And bishop takes c5. So threatening to just to capture on d6. And if black captures, of course, the rook would fall. That's why instead of knight takes d5, in order to save the bishop, Steinitz played bishop d6. And now, of course, Chigorin could have exchanged the pieces and get material advantage by playing simple chess. Knight takes f6 check, bishop takes e6, bishop takes c5, and Steinitz would be forced to capture, and Chigorin would have had extra exchange. However, Chigorin didn't want to ease the pressure because the black pieces are undeveloped, black's position is terrible, and white pieces are very active, so he didn't want to exchange and ease the defense. Instead, he wanted to develop his initiative even further and exert even more pressure and create more threats to black. And you can pause the video and find his next great move. So the knight would be ideally placed on f5, exerting terrible pressure and attacking this very important bishop. And for this purpose, he played knight h4. So g6, in order to prevent knight f5, is impossible because the knight would fall. That's why Steinitz captured on d5. And now, instead of capturing back, Chigorin made a much stronger move, knight f5. The knight cannot move anyways, because the knight would capture the bishop with check, and that would be just terrible. That's why Steinitz didn't find anything better than g6. And after knight takes d6 check, queen takes d6, bishop takes d5. Now there is a terrible x-ray, and bishop takes e6 is threatened, and the queen won't be able to capture because the rook would fall. That's why queen c7, moving away from this x-ray. Bishop takes e6, f takes e, and now c5 falls. Bishop takes c5 with a terrible threat, bishop d6. That would be just deadly. That's why Steinitz played rook a8. And after queen takes a8, queen takes c5, white had extra exchange. Queen a4, king d8, rook d2, king c7. Now the second rook joins the game. And rook b5, queen c6, queen b4, d6, a4, queen e8, rook b6, attacking d6, that's why queen f8, queen a5, d5, e takes d, king b8, d6, and Steinitz resigned. I will be grateful to you if you like this video to help me grow the channel, and I suggest watching the next video played by Fischer in the same opening, Evans Gambit, where he sacrificed a lot of material to sustain the initiative. See you next time.